In today's video, we're going to be focusing on the newest hero added to the game, Kiriko. Kiriko is the newest healer to be added to the game, and with her there comes a slight bit of a skill gap and a learning curve that I'm going to actually go ahead and break down in this video for you guys today, whether you're a beginner or somebody that's kind of played the game of Overwatch already, but you're not sure if you want to rock with Kiriko because she doesn't seem like she's going to be the best healing option for the team. So I want to say, as a quick disclaimer, by no stretch of the imagination am I a pro. I'm not a former pro, nothing like that. This video I am making it solely so that I can help new players with that transition over to Overwatch so they're not just confused as hell when they get in, because Overwatch sometimes can be an overwhelming game with a whole lot of things going on and people get confused and lost in all that chaos. So I'm going to help you guys understand this a little better. Now that that's covered, let's get into the abilities of Kiriko and how they work, and giving you guys some tips and tricks on how you can use them and how you shouldn't be using them. Okay, so let's go through the abilities real quick of Kiriko, and let me just go ahead and explain what they are and what they do. She has her healing talismans. Now with these, you hit left click or right click depending on how you like to play the game. I know that some people like to switch up the controls. For me, I left click, and now you're gonna go ahead and throw out your healing talismans. And one thing to keep in mind, when the talismans glow blue, they're not locked on to anybody and they're not healing anyone. So keep that in mind. That does not mean that they can't heal people. It just means that they're not going to follow them and track them and heal them. You're kind of just throwing them out there, and hopefully if somebody runs across it before it goes away, it'll heal them. Next up, she has her kunai. The kunai are not that strong in my honest opinion. They're kind of a weaker damage ability, but if you can get headshots in there, they do hit a little harder. It's just a little bit of a challenge to get them headshots. You got to kind of really be good with your aim, but the kunai, those are obviously her damaging abilities. Next up, we have the swift step. Now with this one, this allows her to teleport to her allies, and man, when I tell you guys that this ability alone makes Kiriko one of the better options in healers for me, and we can break that down a little bit later when we're starting to talk about her positives and negatives. Next up, we have her protection, Suzu, I believe is how it's pronounced. Now with this one, she throws a charm that briefly makes her teammates invulnerable and cleanses them of most of the negative effects. So that could be from Junker Queen when she uses her ultimate. It can be from Anna where she hits you with that thing that looks like a little poisonous dart, and it could even work against the monk. I can't think of his name right now. For whatever reason, I'm drawing a blank, but you guys know the other healer. He can hit you with them debuffs and stuff like that, preventing you from being healed. With this ability, you can get rid of that and give your teammates that slight invulnerability. Then next up, we have her two passives, one of them being the wall climb, which is kind of very useful and underutilized by me personally, but it is a very useful ability. And then her passive role, which just allows her to heal over time because she is a healer. And last but not least, we got the Kunai rush, and this one essentially is just a mega buff. If you guys aim this just right, and as long as you stay on the Kunai's path, you're going to get an incredible damage buff for you and your allies. So with that, this is when you want to start using her kunai a little bit more, because she throws them at a much faster pace and she increases the damage that she'll push out on them. So I would say if you want to do damage with Kiriko, wait until you have your ultimate, because that is a better time to use it. You really want to focus more on heals rather than damage, because one, you're already a support role, but two, you just don't do enough damage with Kiriko unless you have that rush ability with her ultimate. So that's very good. You want to combo that a lot of the times with your teammates' ultimates as well, or if your team is ready to make a crazy push. There are so many ways that we can break that down, and we're going to go ahead and do that in this next portion of the video. So now getting into the section where we talk about the positives and negatives of her abilities and how you should be using them. Let's go ahead and go through the abilities once again. She's not like Moira where she can just continuously spray her heal side to side and get a group of her teammates. I think at most you might be able to heal like 2 people. So keep that in mind when you're using her and her talismans. In my experience, I've had a better time with Kiriko when I'm more so playing in that back role, just super focusing on healing. And if I can, or if I see a enemy that's kind of weaker, I'll start to throw my kunai out there and help out a little bit more. But the second I see my teammates getting down halfway or to that crit, no damage is being pushed out by me anyways, and I'm just super focused on healing. Going over to swift step. Now with this one, this has a lot of positives. Like I stated, you can really get in there, you can use it for movement, you can get in and really help your teammates out. What you want to be careful of though is, like I had to learn for myself, is if you see DPS, especially if you're getting in there with randoms and not a teammate, a lot of DPS like to flank and do a lot of different things like that where they're kind of out on their own. You definitely want to avoid using Swift Step on them because Kiriko is a very squishy character. She's a healer, so she doesn't have that much health, but she's just extremely squishy, so you don't want to just be Swift Stepping to somebody that's way off away from your team. If anything, you want to stay with the tank and potentially even the DPS that's staying somewhat close to the tank. You don't want to be out there alone because you're not going to survive. The downside to it is Swift Step is only going to work once your allies get within range. So if you're kind of in an oh shit situation, but your teammates aren't around, there's no Swift Step. You can't just be teleporting in and out wherever the hell you want. There has to be a teammate for you to lock onto. So that's the one downside to it, which isn't even really a downside. It's just a learning curve. Now with her cleansing Suzu ability, what you want to keep in mind, man, is she's gonna kind of throw that thing out there like it's a bomb, so you can throw it on yourself or you can throw it on teammates. It's not going to lock on like how her talismans do. You have to throw that at a person and be somewhat accurate with it. So what I do is, instead of trying to throw it at the back of a teammate or something, what I like to do is just throw it into a group of my teammates if possible and throw it at their feet so that it'll give them that effect. Now, a lot of people I've noticed, if they get Kiriko, they don't use this ability because they probably don't fully understand it. You guys, keep in mind when you're using this protection, it's going to make them invulnerable to damage. So if you throw it at somebody's feet, like let's say a DPS or your tank who's kind of in a shitty spot and you can't heal them fast enough, throw it at their feet real quick, make them invulnerable, and then start throwing healing talismans at them. That's how I like to combo it with my heal. So because it has a little bit of a longer cooldown, you don't want to just be throwing it out there just to throw it. You know what I mean? Like, it's very strategic and timed when you want to use it. So for me, like I said, I use it on the tanks when I notice that they're taking a lot of damage and I can't get enough heals out there. Then I'll throw it at their feet and then start healing them, you know, just to make sure that they don't die, because if they go down, the whole operation could go down. And then lastly, let's go ahead and talk about the ultimate. Throw that ultimate, man, you just want to make sure you're staying on that path as if it's the yellow brick road, because as long as you're on it, no matter if you're going forward or backwards, side to side, as long as you're on that path, that damage buff is going to be applied to you and your teammates. With that, those are the positives and negatives to Kiriko's abilities and some tips on how you guys should and could potentially use them. Like I said, Kiriko is a character that just has a slight bit of a skill gap, but if you are willing to put that time in to learn her, then sky's the limit to what you guys can do with her. So to wrap it all up, man, and go ahead and end this video, in my honest opinion, I think Kiriko is a great healer. I think she's one of the top healers. There are people like Lucio, she's still gonna kind of struggle to out heal, and potentially even a Mercy. But for the most part, I've had games now that I've played where I did out heal both Lucio and Mercy, but I was, like I said, I was solely focused on healing. It's not the most flashy, I understand it's not the most fun, but as a support character, that's kind of what you're signing up for, you know what I mean? So if you put at least 70% of your focus in the heals and then do everything else damage wise later on, you guys will have a much better time with Kiriko. You have to learn how to play her a little bit like a ninja, almost like Genji. You don't want to just be sitting in one spot for too long. You want to keep moving around, using your swift step as much as possible whenever that cooldown goes away, and just be very on your toes and aware of the surroundings that you're in, and don't put yourselves in too bad of a situation where you can't get out of it. And with that, guys, that's gonna wrap up this video. But I'm gonna have so much more for you guys. Like I said, we can go into much deeper tips and tricks on Kiriko, especially since she's not in rank currently. And once she gets into the competitive queues, then it's gonna change how you guys are gonna have to get out there and use her a little bit more. So you guys wanna be sure that you're subscribed to the channel before you get up out of here. And also be sure to check out any other Overwatch videos that I have, because if you're a new player, you're definitely going to want to be around for when I give you guys more in-depth details on the roles and how they're supposed to be played, and helping you guys just have a better transition over to Overwatch from whatever game you're coming from. And with that, thank you guys, and I look forward to catching you in the next one.